Oh, no.
What? Hey! What do you got?
Some guy's watching us.
Pursuit of subject, fire trail heading east to highway. Hey, you guys, you see anyone coming down? A guy running? Yeah, he was really bugging. Yeah, give me a bike. Come on, let's go. Let's go! I'll get it back to you, don't worry. Hold still. Do not move. Ray, I think we got our coyote.
Woohoo! Cool, man. That was great.
Well, thank you.
You know, as long as I've known you, I really haven't seen your work, right?
Thank you.
So it's pretty exciting. I want to see more of that today.
Very cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, my friend from the old days, Phillip Giffin. And
Thank you. Thank you, Cathy. Please hold your applause, everyone. First of all, Cathy, let me say, I think it's so cool. But did you start doing this from the pandemic, or were you doing it prior?
No, I wasn't. I early when the pandemic started happening, I started feeling uncomfortable that I wasn't doing things that were connecting to people. So I thought, I'm just going to go online and, talk a little bit. And then it started happening, and it became 2-hour conversations, and I have such varied friends. When you go on your Facebook, for instance, and you look and you know about 5,000 people. I'm sure you know shitloads.
No, I do have 5,000 Facebook friends. I think of those 5,000, maybe 5 are people that are friends. I'm exaggerating, but maybe 50.
But you know most of the people who are on there, and me too. And I mean, okay, like you and I have had experiences in the past together. I mean, we have a past, but we haven't seen each other, and we've never seriously worked with each other.
Right.
So
we have to change that.
Okay. So the thing is when I have these conversations, all of a sudden these people who I know, 2-hour conversations. It's just so much fun. It's great.
Well, I go as far back with you as Berkeley. When I knew you were a killer jazz singer then, so now you're like a Zen master. No, I really love what you do and what you've been doing, and including this podcast. I think it's really cool. I hope you keep it up even after all this pandemic stuff is hopefully over soon.
Yeah, I'm going to try and figure out how the best way to do that is, because I do want to continue, So yeah, um, uh, yeah. Badoo, badoo.
You know, I remember you. You were in a band, like a jazz band with Glenn Davis.
I
Who?
can't believe you remember that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Glenn, who I've reconnected on Facebook, um, and actually I did some performances back in Ohio. Uh, and Glenn came with his wife Judy, and it was so great to see them. Anyway, I remember you were like, as a student, you were one of those working students. You know, we were all hoping to get gigs, and you were doing gigs.
Well, that band had Mike Hadfield on vibes,
Yeah,
a guitar player, Glenn, and Chet. Chet, I forget Chet's last name. He was a great bass player, and
yeah. I remember.
that band was called Timbre. And I'll have to send you. I've actually posted this picture before, but I'll have to send you a band picture that was in a hotel, after our gig, where the guys were standing around a bed that I was kind of sprawled out on, in my
Yeah.
dress with my hairy armpits, and the band was in their paisley shirts and underwear.
Really, just as a joke?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I don't even know who was taking the picture. Now that I think about it, because we
Right.
we didn't have like self, Chet Cahill. Thank you, Glenn Davis. Hi, and Mark
That's
Rosen.
so great.
And Glenn sent me a recording last year of the band. I'll have to share that with you too.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. I bet it's great because you guys were all great back then. So you're dangerous now.
I think it was great for the time being. It was pretty funny. Glenn, I don't know if I ever sent you that picture either, but I'll have to send you that picture too. But so and you were a guitar player.
I was a guitar player through my studies at Berkeley, excuse me, until my senior year, which reality was glimpsing over the horizon, like, and I thought, there are a lot of guitar players out there. And I was one of those kind of composer, arranger. I was the guy in the band always doing the horn charts and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't really the guy ripping the flashy solos. So I converted to bass, which I absolutely loved. And I got work a lot. In other words, I stayed in Boston a total of 7 years, 4 of which I was at Berklee College of Music, and then another 3, I was working 6 days a week, the full year. And
Wow.
those bands we had back then with the gross outfits, the big, winged collars, and we had jumpsuits and
Yeah.
boots, and it was, talk about embarrassing photos. I'm not sure if I'm quite secure enough to post some of those photos, but that was a lot of fun and a whole lot of experience, really valuable experience. And to this day, I consider myself a bass player. I mean, as far as guitar, well, there's a word that comes up. I like to consider myself a hack. No, but for guitar, like, I can like read lead sheets and play, any chord, what have you. But and I do record there's some movie scores that I've recorded myself on guitar, but normally not. I like using people like Jeff Richman and Michael Landau and Mike Miller and Val McCallum, guys like that.
Yeah. Well, you have a picture of you playing your guitar on your website.
Yeah. I could accompany a vocalist on guitar, and I find myself doing that a fair amount, just kind of, working songs out and stuff like that. And like I said, some of my records, I'll like record a guitar part thinking, oh, I'll replace this later. And then when I bring the guitarist in and he'll listen to it, he'll say, don't touch that. And I go, really? Okay. You know, I usually trust people that are far better than I am on that instrument.
Yeah.
And I actually do the same with bass too. I'll record myself on the track. And then I like to bring in Abraham Laboriel. I notate exactly what I do and then say, listen, feel free to deviate from this. Whatever works from you, use, and whatever works less good, come up with something else. And it's a really good system.
Yeah. Yeah. So these days you are, well, you tell me, because I'm
Well,
really familiar.
I score movies and films and TV shows, and I work a lot with vocalists and produce records. I'm a music director for a Cirque du Soleil director, a really talented guy, and also a good friend, Stefan Haves. And we have done many live shows that are so amazing. And
For Cirque du Soleil or something else?
well, it's called something else for legal reasons, but Cirque loves, Stefan works for Cirque, and they love coming to these shows because oftentimes they'll say, we'll take him, or we like her. And Stefan has gotten so many people great gigs with Cirque du Soleil. It's almost like we're the farm team for Cirque du Soleil. But we have a great time. It's probably we take ourselves a little less seriously. In fact, Stefan likes to really make fun of Cirque, who they love. When they're in the audience, they just love it when we make fun of them. But we're kind of the more irreverent American version of it. We have like a guy named Scott Neary who, in his act, he's a great comedian, but also a juggler and a contortionist, and he juggles pancakes as he's doing this comedy. He actually heats up this electric skillet and then makes pancakes as he's juggling, and he juggles the pancakes and then even throws the pan up, does these spins. It's amazing, but he tosses it off. It's almost like, oh, this is what I happen to be doing, as he's doing like a comedy routine. It's really fun. And he comes out, I'll introduce him, and he'll come out and say, I'd like to apologize to the audience for the band. We couldn't afford a CD player. So we that's the kind of, vibe it is.
Wow.
But I've been lucky. I have, somehow kept busy.
Yeah. I like how you say that. I know that sounds so much more casual than it is, I mean, every time I've ever talked to you, you're involved with something deep. So, and you don't get where you got by just doing it occasionally.
Well, that's really nice of you. And instead of me being falsely modest, I have worked my ass off in order to be useful.
Yeah.
And when I give talks sometimes to colleges around the country, and that's what I say: be useful. In fact, I owe my house. I live in a nice neighborhood in Pacific Palisades, and I owe it to a guy I met in college, because it's Richard Gibbs, and he knew me in college. And when he came to LA, he worked as a keyboard player for Oingo Boingo.
Oh, okay.
And so he got an opportunity to score a movie. And of course he said yes. And then his next call was to me in a huge panic. Bill, I've never done this, help. So, for the next, 15 years or so, I kind of produced him in a way, but I orchestrated his music. And he's phenomenally talented. Trust me, I didn't teach him anything creatively because he had that in spades. But that's what I say. It's not only what you learn in college, it's who you meet.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Well, that's everywhere, isn't it? Because when you connect with people, and then you have something, as you said, to offer, and they need that, and they have something to offer you.
Yeah, what I like to tell, aspiring composers and instrumentalists is be the kind of person that when someone else gets a gig, they think, oh, I have to have Bill on this team. I have to have Susan. I have to have Cathy. We've got to bring them in on this. Be that kind of person. So um, a lot of times, especially when you're young and even good at what you do, you might have a tendency to be a little cocky. That's not going to serve you in the end, because you don't need to be if you're really good at something, it will reveal itself to others around you. You don't need to tell them how good you are at something. What I like to say, there's a theory in physics, it's called sympathetic vibration, and I'm sure you probably know about it, but I kind of take that scientific theory and incorporate it in my life. And here's what the theory is. It's not a theory, it's a property. Sympathetic vibration is if you take a piano and, let's say, push the pedal down so that all the strings are free, and you sing, whatever, I don't have perfect pitch, but let's say that's a C sharp. That C sharp string starts ringing on its own without touching it. Just because it's in tune with that sound wave that you're singing. So it starts, you go, and stop, and it's ringing back to you, the same pitch you sang. So that's how I feel people are. If you are really aggressive, competitive, jealous, hostile, that's the frequency you're sending out, and that's the frequency that will come back to you. But if you're helpful, supportive, kind, loving, empathetic, that's the frequency that comes back to you. I know it's an oversimplification, but it's worked for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think of it as an oversimplification. I think of it as, I'm forever giving ideas like that. Maybe that's why I don't think it's an oversimplification, because people, they need images, and they need images, relating to ideas. And so when it's kind of boiled down to a simple action, then people can really think.
Yeah, and when you think about it, all matter is just particles vibrating so fast, like a piece of wood. Those are particles vibrating so fast you can't put your hand through it, unless you accelerated that piece of wood at the same rate that the vibration, at the speed of light. And then you would put your hand right through the piece of wood, because you're going as fast as those particles are vibrating. You didn't know I was a scientist. No, but I do like to read, books and magazines about it.
Okay, so you're a scientist.
Yeah, right.
You're a producer. You're a composer. Do you orchestrate as well?
Yeah, I orchestrated a lot, and I don't want to say I don't anymore, but I guess I don't anymore. and it's not because it's not a great gig. It is a great gig, and even my special payments check that we all get every year for the union gigs we do. I mean, I'm really grateful for all the orchestrating I did. And I guess the reason I don't really hustle orchestration work anymore is I'm just, and once again, nobody's above it. It's a great gig.
Yeah.
But I'm usually busy writing and kind of orchestrating my own stuff. And someone that orchestrates my music now is a guy you met before the show, Andrew Limbo, who's a guy that works with, Andrew's an orchestrator, arranger, composer, and also an engineer, which I am not. So that's kind of his job security, that I own all the gear, but I don't want to touch it. I only want to write music, arrange it, orchestrate it, produce it. But I don't really have any interest in being an engineer.
Yeah. I love you're coming clean with that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, well, what I find is, when I try to record do it on my own, it doesn't take much to get hung up. Like, wait, why aren't I hearing this sound? And I'm hitting a keyboard. And then, 5 minutes later, oh, I figured it out. But then I feel so kind of inadequate and dumb, and I'm like, boy, that's really kills my creative spirit. But that's just me. I would not recommend that for anybody. In fact, anyone that's listening, learn to be an engineer. In fact, that's a really great way to work for a composer, because there are other composers like me that can actually do all this stuff. But I don't want to generalize too much. We don't really want to. We would rather just kind of focus on, let me write this, you punch me in, can you comp this take number 3 with take number 4 at bar 47, jump over to take 6. I'm happy to have someone else do that for me.
Yeah.
As far as my wife's concerned, she probably wouldn't mind me doing it myself. We would have more money, but it's a good way to kind of share the wealth, so to speak.
Yeah, and you keep the whole thing. You keep the whole thing moving like that.
Yeah, and I kind of like compartmentalizing. So I like to compose, arrange, produce, orchestrate. And I do also, I'm a conductor. I worked for, and I would have to credit this gig to Jeff Richmond, because he's the one that recommended me. And a lot of your viewers might not even know who it is, but it's Connie Stevens.
I know.
Yeah. Great actress, but a lot of people don't know. She had a hit record.
Uh-huh.
She had actually several hit records. She can really sing and really entertain. So she did it right. She would, any city we went to, she hired a full orchestra. And so I was her music director and her conductor for a little less than 3 years. And that was a lot of great experience. You'd come in, you'd have 3 hours to rehearse. I don't know how many charts, like maybe 20, complicated orchestral and big band charts. And for a 90-minute show. So you learn to really rehearse efficiently. For example, here's a little trick I learned. I would always rehearse the book backwards. I wouldn't rehearse the first song in the show. I started with the last song and went in reverse order, because everyone takes a break and you go have your meal and whatnot. Now you come back and dressed up. And so now, the orchestra is usually a little nervous, the spotlight comes on and the temp and all that stuff. And the first song they play is the last song they rehearsed, and it's the freshest in their mind. And so then you're over that first tune and second tune, you become a little more relaxed. And I just found that was a good little technique.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So Connie Stevens, I didn't know that actually about you, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
By the way, that note was an F.
Wow.
That was Tim Weston found that.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Wow, what an honor. Thanks, Tim. Yeah.
Connie Stevens, I don't think she was in Hawaii and I, was she? No. I don't think she was in the 60s TV.
She was in 77 Sunset Strip, I think.
Uh-huh.
I think. Don't quote me on that. But she was, I think she might have played Tammy in that movie, Tammy.
Oh.
really incredible person, and just like,
Real go-getter, right?
yeah, and would, hang with the band, after and on our days off. And she and her kids are wonderful. And she was married to Eddie Fisher.
Oh yeah, okay.
Um, anyway, Connie also knew how to kick your ass too if something wasn't right, which really, it was great working for someone like her. She taught me so many things, like, she would bring someone up from the audience and we would, play them up. You never want to just let someone saunter onto the stage in silence. We would quickly just play something. And then whenever she was done with her little bit, we'd play them off. And little things, like she said, you never play someone off at the same tempo you played them on. I said, wow, thank you. She said, it's always a little brighter.
Oh.
And I said, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. So, that's just one of the many things I learned from her.
Yeah.
And like, for example, if the third trumpet player cracks a note, that's my fault.
Really?
No, that's kind of how you have to look at it. The buck stops with me. I would never blame the player. But tempos were incredibly important. So when I was conducting, let's say I'm facing the orchestra and I'm conducting like this, I would constantly be conducting, but looking as she, walked the stage. I would be watching her like a hawk, just to know that I'm in the pocket that she's in. And drummers had to be really sensitive to that too. Because it's not a matter of here's the click and that's where you're going to stay. It's not like that on her shows and a lot of live shows. And really, it's nice when a band breathes with the vocalist, as you know.
Yeah. That's really important stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you do? What did you do after college? Where did you go after college?
Okay, so I went straight from after I graduated from Berkeley. I did walk right into a gig. I got a gig with a show band. Like three horns, background singers, we toured. Playing cover songs, but in pretty great rooms that, everyone was on the dance floor. We played Casey and the Sunshine Band, those kind of hits.
Yeah.
So I toured with various bands for 3 years. And I do remember I had some buddies that I really liked, but they were always in other bands and I was in another band, but it's like we kind of had this fantasy, wouldn't it be great to be in the same band together? But it's almost like, I guess, a relationship. It's like, no, but I'm married to this band, you're married to that band. But finally, the planets aligned in such a way that I got in a band and we trimmed it down to 4 people. Guitar, bass, keyboards, and drums, and all 3 of them sang. I could sing a little background vocals, and a couple of leads on a couple of songs, but really vocal strong, and really great players. And the money just divided way better 4 ways than it did 8.
Right.
So I stayed in that band for quite a while, and I think part of the success of that band, it was really neat because when we formed, we got together and got a calendar and went flipped into the future a long way, like a couple of years, and we circled a date. We said, that's the date we're going to disband. Okay. And back to science, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you band, there will always be a disband. So instead of just saying, yeah, we're going to play forever, we're brothers. No, we said on this day, it's over. Now, and we said, it's perfectly fine if you two want to form a band, or you three and without me or whatever. If all of that is okay, and we support. So that way, oftentimes when a band disbands, there are hard feelings. Let's face it. It's kind of like a divorce in a way. But this was a planned divorce. It's like, this is when we'll stop. And man, we were able to actually save a fair amount of money. And I remember I bought a car. I'm from Ohio, a small town called Worcester. It's about an hour south of Cleveland. And I was driving, someone had picked me up from the airport and we're driving back. And there are a lot of cornfields where I live. And I saw this car out in the cornfield, a Mustang. It said, for sale. I said, I like that car. And I came back and, I paid the guy cash for it. And that was the first car I bought. And I just packed up everything that would fit in that little car. And my brother was living near San Francisco at the time, he and his wife. So I drove from Ohio there. And then, oh man, talk about good fortune. I was friends with Cricket Goldwyn. Do you remember her? It's Catherine Goldwyn, the granddaughter of MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, she said, I was at one of her birthday parties in Boston. Oh, she married Gary Burton and had two beautiful kids. She's a really talented singer-songwriter, wonderful person. Anyway, I met her mother at Cricket's birthday party. And her mother insisted if I make the move to LA, they did have a rather large house, that she said, you can stay with us until you find a place to live. And I took them up on it, and man, was that helpful to be able to have a place to come while I was searching every day for apartments. So that was really helpful. And
wow, that must have been really.
Yeah, and to this day, I'm great. I'll do anything Cricket Goldwyn wants. I'll say, what time do you need it?
That's really nice. So you were in LA, you got into LA, and then how did you get into all the stuff that you did?
I first of all, as I tell other aspiring composers, musicians, whatnot, you do anything you can. So I gave guitar lessons, bass lessons, and also I had the ability, like all of us do, I could listen to something and notate it.
Yeah.
But I also happen to have, I can draw a little bit, and I have a pretty good hand. In fact, I still have, this is a German pin.
Oh my God, like that we used to use in Berkeley.
Yeah.
I just came across mine. I had.
It's a pelican. And anyway, I made lead sheets, and my neighbor, who also was in the music business in music publishing, her name is Debbie Dill, who works with Quincy Jones and everybody. She said, you know how to listen to something and write it down? And I said, yeah. And so I gave her an example of what I did. She took it to work, and then they said, she just came back the next day. That evening, she came back with cassettes and said, can you make a lead sheet of this? Because we'd like to record it in the morning. And so I worked a lot. I did thousands. Well, I don't want to exaggerate. A lot of those. In fact, she once came to me with a little song, and she said, can you write this out? Because Quincy would like to record it in the morning. A little song called Man in the Mirror. Oh, and this is funny. I'm really, obviously I'm a huge fan of Jeff Richman's. Yeah. And when Jeff heard it, he said, I don't know if that's, I said, are you kidding? This is incredible. Because it had a dominant 7 sharp 9 chord in it. And I thought, it's pretty cool for a pop tune. I mean, now you know, Steely Dan has all kinds of words like that. But I wrote a ton of lead sheets, and I did some copying, which that's a good gig. And also kind of music directed for some singers. Oh, here's a little story for you. Part of those tapes, I would, you know, you got to listen, weed it back and forth to make sure it's right. And by the way, I don't want to give the impression I would just be sitting in the park listening, notating. No, I would have to check it, you know, on guitar and or piano or whatnot, or both. But I kept hearing this woman, this vocalist, and she was incredible. And I can't tell you how many songs I notated where she was singing, and they kind of referred to her as their secret weapon, because when she sang one of, and this was when they had staff writers. That's kind of, they don't have that as much now. Yeah. But I would listen to her time and time again, and to be honest, I developed this incredible crush, which, by the way, when you listen to a great female vocalist, that's kind of what happens. You're imagining she's singing that to you. I mean, that's a pretty common thing. You know, similar to when you watch a movie, you kind of imagine that you're one of those characters, or you identify somehow, where am I in this movie? And that's kind of how I am when I listen to songs. And so I'm kind of imagining, oh, she's singing all this to me. Anyway, I developed this huge crush on her. And Debbie Dill, the person bringing me the work, she kind of let the cat out of the bag and told the singer that I had this crush on her. And so Debbie invited this singer over to her apartment, which was right next to mine. And I knew she was coming over. So I put the last song that she had sung, I turned it up to 11. And so they heard it and she laughed. I came over. Anyway, that's who I married. So that's Karen. Wow. That's Karen Blake. And so I was in love, and this is before Facebook. So I had no idea she could have had an eye in the middle of her forehead, but it didn't matter. I knew I was in love with this person before I met them or saw them, or fortunately she's not dead gorgeous to this day even.
That's the greatest story.
I like to say I married up.
Wow, Karen, man.
But MCA assigned me to produce Karen, and we did some showcases, and that's not that uncommon.
That's beautiful. By the way, Aunt Shirley is listening.
Really?
Yep.
Please give her my love.
Well, you just gave it to her because she's listening.
Good. Make sure you tell me any comments, especially the negative ones.
Oh yeah, well, Jeff Richmond is on, and Wendy Peterson, and Pat Kelly, and I don't know all who you know and don't know, but I will tell you
there's some legendary musicians you just read off.
Yeah, Jeff Richmond, one of
Jeff Richmond, Pat Kelly. Yeah, you and I share that affinity for him. He's a genius, not only the way he plays, but what he writes. An incredible composer, arranger, player, and person.
Yes. Okay, so interesting. So you were living next door to Cricket. Cricket?
No,
you were living next door to
Debbie Dill.
So that kind of entered you into. Did you continue working for Quincy, or was that just?
Well, I can't say I worked for Quincy. I provided things for Quincy through Debbie Dill, but that would be a stretch. Actually, hang on, let me write that on my resume. Worked for Quincy Jones. No, I did not. But I maybe made a couple of lead sheets that he had his band read.
Well, that's kind of cool, man.
Yeah, so that I was always kind of in the writer's realm because from the beginning, people would say, "Hey, can you write this out for me? Can you notate this for me?" That kind of thing, and also orchestrating for composers. You get to really get inside of what they write, and then I got a gig orchestrating for Michael Kamen through a dear friend of mine from Berkeley, Christopher Brooks, who is also an amazing composer, arranger, but he's made a great living as a music editor for incredible composers. And he was Michael Kamen's music editor, and Michael Kamen needed an orchestrator, and Chris recommended me. So that's how I orchestrated, Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, some of those big movies with 90-piece orchestras. And man, I learned a lot from Michael Kamen. Michael Kamen's the kind of composer, God rest his soul, that was equally as comfortable with the orchestra as he was with a rhythm section. And he's written great hits, like Everything I Do for You, Ryan Adams. That Michael Kamen wrote that.
Oh.
Yeah, so I could never fill his shoes, but I like to think of myself as someone that can write orchestral music, but also can write a pop tune or a jazz tune or something like that for a vocalist. There is something about the human voice that is, I don't know, extra special. I mean, look at the difference in our unions, AFTRA SAG union compared to the musicians union, which I'm not criticizing the musicians union, but AFTRA SAG, their benefits are way better than the musicians union. And in a sense, I mean, their reuse payments are higher. It makes sense. It's their voice they're using as opposed to an instrument, which, once again, don't get me wrong, very important, all instruments. But I really believe that the human voice has to be in a category, I don't know, at ever so slightly above an instrument. I mean, even though it is an instrument, but it's because it's attached to your body, it deserves a certain kind of honor and respect. So even though I love writing film music, orchestral music, any kind of music for film, I never want to stop working with songs and singers. Here's the thing about film music. And man, in case any directors are listening, maybe mute this. But the thing about film music is you are completely, and it makes it fun, by the way, but you're completely subservient to the dialogue and the sound effects. So, a car brake or a door slam or footsteps, that might be more important than your music that you wrote with a 90-piece orchestra. And the footstep sound effects, that's $5, and the orchestra was $200,000, whatever. But that's just how it is. It doesn't matter. You service the picture. And so essentially look at it like this. You're sharing the sonic space, and you're sharing it in a way that serves the picture best. So most of the time it's dialogue is way more important than the music, as it should be. And then oftentimes sound effects, bombs, breaks, voila, anything, silverware clanging on plates, that could be more important than your music too. Once again, those are the rules coming into that game.
Yeah.
But what makes, working with singers and that special is that's it. You don't have to share the sonic space with anyone. It's all about the singer and the song and servicing that song. And you don't have any bombs, any car breaks. anything like that. That's what makes that special. So I always want to keep that present. Anyway.
Is there anything on your site that you know about that might kind of show a little bit of that?
Well, let's see. Why don't you see if you can find on my website Boomtown main title.
Okay. Now, did we play that?
No, you played Coyote Den.
Oh, okay.
There's something called main title.
Is that a video? That's a video?
It's a video.
Okay, it's just loading. Boomtown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boomtown was a show on NBC that only lasted one season, sadly. But it won a Peabody Award. It was really good. It starred Donnie Wahlberg and a couple of other great actors. And it was written and conceived by Graham Yost, who.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find it?
I found it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
go for it.
I was like scrolling through this. I mean, and this I'm sure isn't even all of the things that you did, right? It's a lot.
Well, I'll say that is just a slight fraction.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even want to put everything I did on my website because then I would definitely not get hired ever again. So I don't know if you want to play it. This is a main title. I actually won an Emmy nomination for this, for best main title.
Wow, cool. Okay, I'm gonna play it. Here we go. Wow, that sounded beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So that was Jeff Richmond featured on guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a trumpet player named Malcolm McNabb, who is an orchestral player of incredible ability. He plays a lot of the solos for John Williams. He's retired now, but that was him playing trumpet. Simon Phillips played drums. Simon Phillips did this great thing on that track. In addition to playing drums, and this was his idea, he said, oh, let's do something. And we slowed the track down and he played a hi-hat part. And then when you brought the track back up to speed, it made, a very kind of mechanical pulse that was really phenomenal. And I told him I owed the success of that main title to him.
When you start something like that, what's the process? Do you start with a melodic theme, or?
Well, let me tell you something. That's a good question. And a teacher once told me at Berklee College of Music, never write at the piano, because then you'll only write as well as you can play.
I can say that's for sure.
Yeah, and so that applies to any instrument. So what that means for me is this, and let me be clear about it. When I write something, when I conceive of something, I'm sitting in a chair. I also meditate, and so maybe it'll be after a meditation, or it's not during a meditation, because I just do transcendental meditation. It's nothing, earth-shattering.
Well, you're not supposed to be thinking.
Correct. It's the absence of thought. But I will, and what I do, and this is what I do when I'm conceiving of a scene, I kind of imagine myself like I've done some horror movies. I kind of imagine myself being scared. And I really go there in my imagination and think of a time maybe when I was scared. And then I'll just be silent and like, what is it that I'm hearing in my mind? What am I hearing? And then I'll start to hear something. It might be a little melodic riff. It might be some kind of just sound. Now, that's how I begin. I just first, it's just something I don't do. I don't go to the piano and say, let me think of something I can write. No, that to me, that's the kiss of death, because I'll just get frustrated. So I'll wait until something percolates, some kind of melodic idea, and then sometimes I'll write that out before I even go to an instrument. But then I will go to an instrument and then develop it from there, perhaps. But also I was really lucky. Disney hired me to do 93 episodes of one of their animated cartoons, and they gave me an orchestra, a full orchestra every week.
Wow.
So that's what's paying my kids' way through college, because those characters never quit or get pregnant or become drug addicts. Those cartoon characters are really consistent. They never ask for more money. Anyway, so cartoon music, for example, it's made up of a lot of runs. You know what I mean? So, man, I wish I had the ability just to sit down and play that at the piano, but I don't. But what I do have is the ability to conceive of it.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll look at a scene and say, okay, this is the character's falling down the stairs, the cartoon character. No one was injured in the making of the scene. So I have to think of a way, oddly enough, it's funny when someone falls down the stairs, a run up still works. I don't know why, but it doesn't always have to be down and up according to how the person's falling. But so, big, huge orchestral runs, those are highly choreographed, highly worked out, because we've got to figure out ranges and, okay, what's this guy going to do? Okay, I'll have the low guy just play the root, and, I'll pass it from flute to oboe to English horn to clarinet, down the orchestra like that. But once again, to answer your question, the way I start is I think of it in my mind first, because then you're only limited to your imagination, and your imagination's endless. So that's what I recommend. You don't have to be some exceptional instrumentalist to be an exceptional composer, because I'm not an exceptional instrumentalist. Well, I don't want to imply an exceptional composer, but I can definitely write things that I would never be able to play.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I'm going to apply that to myself. And I've thought of that over the years, actually, from time to time, because first of all, I'm not really a great piano player. But a lot of the songs that I have written, I've heard first.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
My head, and then I go and develop them. But yeah.
It's so exactly what I mean.
Yeah, and if I do follow my piano chops, it's okay, but it's not. I always think it's lacking somehow.
Well, I'm sure in your case, you kind of chase down whatever it is you're hearing, and it's a melody, and then you marry it with a lyric, or I don't know if you start with a lyric and then find a melody.
Either
but
way.
Then you get some basic ideas of what the chords are, but then you get a great piano player.
Yeah. I
don't know who some of your favorites are. I know you've played with a lot of great musicians, but then that's what I do. Yeah. Like I'll kind of get the idea and then hand it over to someone that's way better than I am, and they'll implement my idea, but then inevitably they'll add something special to it.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with you. Sometimes I can't even imagine really. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I can play piano and accompany myself, and
That's great.
you might not go, oh, stop, but for me to practice with myself, it's kind of useless.
I see.
Because
You mean like if you have a gig, you don't want to practice singing with accompanying yourself.
yeah, because my playing is not up to par.
Yeah, that's
So
kind of what I was talking about earlier. Your brain is splitting and doing two things. You're singing your melodies and your lyrics, and oh yeah, now I'm accompanying myself too, which tons of people do incredibly well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I'm one of those guys that just does one thing. In fact, my wife makes fun of me because I'm a terrible multitasker. I'm just not good at it at all. You know how those newscasters have the earpiece and they can talk, to the camera as someone's giving them instructions. I would be like, hang on. Oh, this just in.
Well, luckily, that's not your job.
No, thank goodness.
Mark Baldrige has a question. I'm interested to hear what you say about this, but kind of have an idea. But how do you get known where people come to you to write?
Well, here's how. This is a very specific answer, and thank you for that question. You go to you become helpful to the people that are doing the job you want. And you can do it. I know it sounds daunting, but find the people that are doing what you like to do. And film composers and arrangers and producers, we're kind of a behind the scenes guy. So it's not like trying to reach Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
You can find, if there's a composer you love, you can get his email and start a little correspondence with him. And this is how I would recommend corresponding. Show him that you're not just a fan, but you're a composer yourself. You don't necessarily have to say, oh, if you want, but talk specifically about a scene that you like that composer did. And I really like that ostinato in that scene, in that chase scene, and blah, 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 blah. Or, and your verbiage will let him know that you're a musician. So don't talk too much about yourself. All you want to do is just get a little dialogue going. I would recommend not asking for a job straight out of the gate, and look, compliments, when they're sincere, they mean something, even to Robert De Niro. If you give him a compliment other than, oh, I'm a big fan, if you specifically break something down, I loved how you started to drink the water, but then you stopped and you put the glass down. Was that your decision, or was that something the director thought of? See how specific I got there? That's how your writer, I forgot his name already. Mark. Sorry, Mark. So be specific, and then don't just write one email, and stay on it, almost like you would a garden that you continue to water and weed and hoe and stuff like that, or a paper route, or whatever the analogy is. You have a group of people that you continue to write to and reach out to, and take notes as to, okay, I wrote him on this date, so that you don't want to become a nuisance to someone, and so in other words, don't write them every day. Because that's called stalking. No, but you kind of keep track of who you're writing and a response you get. And if you get a little dialogue going, you never know. You might be able to, I would love to meet you, whoever the composer is. If I could ever have an opportunity to bring you some coffee in your studio or something, just like have 15 minutes just to meet you. I'd love that. So the point is baby steps, and you meet the people that are doing what you want to do. Nobody is going to come to your door until, you know, you've established what you can do. And you can't do that until you start helping people.
Yeah.
You have to be helpful to those guys. And even if it does mean bringing them coffee, emptying their garbage, or then maybe cleaning up a sequence, or then doing this. And then before you know it, I mean, this was my experience. You know, a composer said, can you take my theme and adapt it to this scene? That's pretty cool. That's a pretty big assignment that you get to take a composer's theme and you're arranging it to work for you can't just like splay the theme out there because it might be stepping on dialogue. So you have to know, like, okay, I'm going to recite the first half of it here, and now there's all this talking, so I'm going to kind of play the chords under all this dialogue, and then I'll come with the B section here, and so it's like that. That was a long answer, but I hope that was helpful.
I think that was a great answer. I have a friend here, Joe Goldberger, who's a composer and a great drummer and a great composer. In fact, I just watched a short that he and his wife made, and everything. They did the whole thing and the music.
Cool.
Really beautiful. And anyway, he would like you to comment on the 104 PC Marching Band and 16 Shots and how it was working with Vinnie Colaiuta.
Well, Vinny is he plays on everything that any record I use Vinny. And there are tons of great drummers, but I knew Vinny from college.
Yeah.
Once again. So we kind of have a shorthand, and I just love Vinny, man. And he's the kind of drummer that, I worked for I think it was 32 highly arranged songs, and every drum hit was written out because I'd programmed it very methodically, including the fills. So I even wrote the fills out. When I say Andrew Lembo, he notated what was in the sequence. And so Vinny was reading all that stuff. Out of the week we were working together, the 32 songs, Vinny never made a single mistake, not even once. He read every note. Now, granted, it wasn't like the Black Page, like Frank Zappa. It wasn't difficult like that. But come on, let's face it. You would think you might not a single hit. Even the indicated here is the cymbal bell, and here the certain hi-hat pattern. Everything he played. I mean, at one point, I know I'm getting off on a tangent on Vinny, and I'll answer your question, Joe. But at one point, I just said, Vinny, how is it that you can read like that? And he said, I just spent a lot of time early on really working hard on it. And the way I imagine it, the way I picture it is, it's almost like Vinny is so familiar with rhythms that there aren't many rhythms that he can see that he hasn't already kind of played and figured out. So when he sees it, he recognizes it's almost like people that can read a teleprompter really well.
Yeah.
They're saying the words as they're already reading the next line.
Yeah.
And that's how Vinny is. Anyway, so I did this. I'm a board member of this, to answer your question, Joe, I'm a board member of a really cool nonprofit called Armory of Harmony. And this is what Armory of Harmony does. It's pretty amazing. It's completely 110% nonpartisan. We're just trying to open up communication. That's what our goal is. But what we do is we repurpose decommissioned firearms we melt them and make musical instruments out of them. And we provide musical instruments for schools that couldn't otherwise afford them.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's an amazing organization.
Wow. And say that again. What is it called?
Armory of Harmony.
Wow, what an interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, I know how this country is in love with, the right to bear arms. We're not trying to take away guns from anyone.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is maybe bring some awareness. I mean, who knows? Let's face it. I think something we can all agree on is maybe this country, more than any other country, we really have a problem with firearms, and mass shootings and stuff like that more than any other country. So I think that's something we all could maybe agree on. Now, people say guns don't kill people, people kill people. Okay, so that's fine. In fact, maybe the person that's going to think of the best solution is an avid member of the NRA. So if that's all we're trying to do is get both sides, let's work together here. And so everybody can relax and agree on because, buyback programs that the police do, and they, buy back weapons in communities, no questions asked. And you wouldn't believe the tons of guns they have. They just melt them and then they make rebar out of them for construction or whatnot. Well, we thought, by the way, and the brainchild of this is Richard Gibbs. But the idea is, instead of just making rebar, why don't we make musical instruments? And so that's something both sides can agree on. Like, okay, that's not gonna affect our rights to bear arms, which we're not trying to take anybody's weapon away. We're just, want to
There's
draw.
not too many trumpets, is it?
What?
Not too many trumpets.
Yeah, a trumpet never killed anyone, right?
No.
Well,
are you
I guess...
making like an overload of trumpets or?
That's funny.
No, that's very cool.
Oh, okay, Joe. So, man, I'm so sorry I didn't finish Joe's question. So we did this project where Rich Gibbs asked me to do an arrangement for 100 pieces, and it was right after that terrible mass shooting in Florida, and so we flew down to Florida and worked with this high school marching band. That's 100 members. And man, that was a lot of fun. And they marched onto the beaches of Daytona. Daytona beaches are really flat. And in fact, that's where they started racing cars originally.
Oh, right.
On the beaches, because they're so flat.
Yeah.
So anyway, we marched the band out there and, videotaped it and made a video, but the rhythm section was recorded back here in LA. Vinnie Colaiuta played drums, and a band called Ozo Motley. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I know the name.
Yeah, they sang it, and the horn players, they were recorded here. And I think that might answer Joe's question.
Yeah, it's 16 shots. Is that?
Yeah, that's the name of the song.
I see. Yeah, I think you answered the question because it was inclusive of.
Yeah, it was really fun to hear, an arrangement of mine. Just imagine being in front of 100 players, and they're like blasting something that you had arranged, and like literally my hair is blowing back from the sound waves. It was, a big, huge drum corps, and it was really fun.
Cool. I want to go hear something else. Can we hear, like, I don't know, a cue or,
Yes. So, hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
Can you give us a suggestion of what we can play, like a cue?
Yeah, you want to go on your site, there's a couple cues from Polaroid, there's Amityville.
Okay, is the bike ride, is that?
The bike ride's on, yes, it's on the website.
Okay, and what's it called?
It's called Polaroid 1M8.
There's something called Polaroid 1M8.
Is this under comedy or drama?
That's drama.
Yes.
Oh, and is this a video or just a?
Oh, and it's called See You Later. That's the title of it.
Is this a video or a?
It's a video.
It's a video. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the screen with you guys so you can see me looking.
Oh, good.
It's amazing.
Andrew, can you see this?
Oh, shoot. Come on. No calls right now, please.
Okay. Keep scrolling down.
But I have to go to video.
Well, wait.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes. So keep scrolling down.
Yeah. And it does.
Oh, wait. Stop once. Go back. Why don't you play that? But before you play it, I'll tell you a little about it.
Okay.
This is a movie directed by Carl Reiner, and it's called Fatal Instinct. Now, here's an example of a movie that I orchestrated for Rich, but Rich was very open with Carl and said, listen, I'm going to have Phillip Giffin write some of this. And he was, Carl said, you're the composer, you decide. So I wrote, some of that music, always utilizing Rich's theme whenever I could, of course.
Uh-huh.
But this is a scene, this is a comedy, and it's a combination between Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. And so it's really funny. But towards the end, I want to draw your attention to something that Carl Reiner did that I don't think any other director's ever done. And so I'll explain what it is. So I'm playing all this overly dramatic score. This is with, a 60-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
And the score is really dramatic. And this character goes to the stereo system and she changes the channel on the score. And when she hits, as if the score is like being emitted in the room. So she changed, and all of a sudden the music changes. You'll see what I'm talking about. It takes place at the end of this cue. So go ahead and play it.
Okay.
Oh my God, look at that.
I was just telling your wife, if she wants to get rid of all her dirt, she has to be willing to pay the price. Please let me know what you decide. I'm sure we can work out a convenient payment plan. It was a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Ravine. I'll just let myself out. Bye now. Who is it?
I just want to talk.
Why didn't you say so? Would you like a drink?
No, thanks. I'm driving.
Then let's get to the point. So, what's your problem, tough guy?
You stay away from my wife, my life, my home, and my stuff. I'm taking a long vacation. And when I come back, I don't want to see your face again.
A vacation? She doesn't deserve a vacation. She's a brat, a bad girl. She always was. She always will be.
What are you talking about? You don't know anything about Lana?
I know everything about Lana.
How do you know? Who is she to you anyway? Who is she?
She's your wife, dummy.
How is she?
She's my sister.
How is she?
Your wife.
You tell me who she is, or I'll fucking...
She's my sister! Your wife! Sister! Wife! Sister! Wife! Sister! Wife! Sister! She's your wife and my sister. She was spoiled rotten. She stole everything I ever had. Everything. Including him.
Him. Who him?
Dwayne. The boy's gym teacher.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was really, I felt like that was a really special moment because Carl Reiner really allowed the film composer in on the gag, you know. He changed the scale of the underscore. That was hilarious. What an incredible guy to work for too. Just couldn't have been sweeter.
Yeah. That's great. That was very entertaining. And the music, now I have a whole kind of different outlook on listening to the music.
Well, that's good. You know, when I watch a movie, I mean, I am just listening to what the actors are saying. I can't help but listen to the music, of course, but I never focus so hard on the music that I miss the forest for the trees. But I do find that after I tell people a little about what I do, I hear back from them, whatever, a week later, and they say, man, I can't tell you how much I'm listening. I didn't realize, you know, some of the music. In fact, I've brought people into my studio before to say, check this thing out, this scene that I wrote, the music, and I'll play something, and then it'll be over, and then I'll look at them and they'll go, oh, I'm sorry, I was just watching the scene and I forgot to listen to the music.
Yeah.
And see, to me, that's a compliment.
Right.
Because what oftentimes film composers try to do, we kind of want to sneak in, do the job, and sneak out. We don't, instead of like coming into a ta-da, unless it's a comedy. But that it's almost like being a toupee maker and having someone not notice that that's a toupee. That's a compliment.
Yes. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I was just thinking when you were saying that, like, something like, well, Cinema Paradiso came to mind.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day with somebody, but when I first saw Cinema Paradiso, I was in Japan. And so the conversation was in Italian. The subtitles were Japanese. And then there was the music and the story, you know, and the acting. I wept through the entire thing. Yeah.
So it's the music that the music and the images told the story.
Yeah.
Unless you speak Italian.
No, not really. And very little Japanese.
That's amazing. That says a lot for that movie, which was great. I think it might have won the Academy Award that year.
Yeah, I know. I really want to go back and see it again because it was such a beautiful movie.
Definitely.
Story. Yeah.
There's something that might be interesting if you could go back to my website. And by the way, that's helpful when you share your screen. I can kind of see.
Yeah.
I forget myself what's there.
Let's see.
There's something called 101 Dalmatians.
Okay.
And yeah, just keep going.
Sorry, hold on. Let me move this over. Here we go.
There.
Okay.
Now, this was from a Disney movie called 101 Dalmatians. And this scene is Twilight Bark. And let me set it up for you. It's when the Dalmatians have been kidnapped, 100 Dalmatian puppies,
Yeah.
by Cruella de Vil, because she wants to make a coat out of their skin, out of their hides. And so this is the dog community all working together, passing the word that it's almost like an Amber Alert but they're all dogs. And you know, when I scored this, even though it's an animated thing, I really got to the heart of it because even though it's a cartoon, it's lighthearted, really what's happening is it's a community coming together to help with an emergency. And to me, that's really moving. So I tried to kind of give it as much heart as I could, but still stay within the confines of it. It is a cartoon. But by the way, cartoons, the successful cartoons, no cartoon animator or writer or director, nobody ever speaks down to the kids. It's always something the successful cartoons can really be enjoyed by the parents.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are bringing the kids to that movie. But it works for the kids too. So it works for the kid within the adult. And that's how I approach this. This is like the London Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh.
So check this out.
Okay, and this movie was 101 Dalmatians, right?
Yes, but it's I think remember there are many versions. So this is 101 Dalmatians. Patches Goes to London.
Oh.
But still, it's the same essence, but maybe slightly different.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, what got into you, girl?
Kidnapped? How many?
Wretched dogs.
Can't understand it. We've been out here doing hero stuff all day, and none of these London photographers seem to care.
Why do you want photographers around?
Oh, kid.
Yeah, man.
So,
that's beautiful.
Oh, you're nice to say that. I guess, what else are you going to say after it's over and you're interviewing me? But there's a lot of detail that goes into something like that. And it's nice. You have to look at it like, a scene like that. I'm just one tiny part of, the cog. I'm a cog in the wheel, if that's the saying. But in other words, everything that went into that scene, it's huge. And me and, a 75-piece orchestra, we're just this small part of it. But I'm telling you, it's a small part, but it's an important part. So all of us, everyone involved, the composer, the copyists, the players, the engineer, we all take that tiny little role very seriously.
Yeah. How long does something like that, how long does it take you?
That scene, that I think I worked on that for 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah, because it was just an important, I'm thinking around 2 days. In other words, maybe a day. To what I do is I sketch something. I want to write it to figure out what are my devices? What's my melodic device, rhythmic device? What's my tempo? Okay, here I'm going to shift to this here. And I first work that out in its simplest form with a piano sketch, because it's easier to change a piano sketch. It's like, I'm not liking this. It's way easier for me to go in and fix that as opposed to trying to fix 70 parts. And if I try to mock up an orchestra part.
Do you do this by hand, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, that I did by hand. But what I'll do is I'll start with a sketch and then I'll orchestrate the sketch. So the first part of the job is just conceiving the notes. And then the second half would be to orchestrate it.
Yeah. To me, 2 days seems ridiculously short.
Yeah, in fact, I want to be, I want to be, it could have been 3 days. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm faster than I am, because then they'll say, hey, well, you did that in 2 days. So it took me 22 days.
Well, the movie, though, must have taken a long time.
Yeah. When I did the cartoon, oh, by the way, I forgot to name the name of that cartoon I did, 93 episodes. It's called Darkwing Duck. So some of your viewers might have heard of it or grew up with it or what have you. Writing cartoon music, it's a certain beast, man. It takes longer to write, let's say 23 minutes of cartoon music, which that's how much music I provided every week. And guess how long the cartoon is? 23 minutes. Because in cartoons, just dead air, it seems weird. There's usually, at least the classic kind of Warner Brothers cartoons, there's never any dead air. There's always something happening musically. So it takes me anyway longer to write cartoon music than any other kind of music. And in fact, the copyists, people that copy cartoon music, it's a certain category for them too, because there are more notes. It's just the kind of thing, there aren't a lot of whole notes in cartoon music. And furthermore, the players in the orchestra takes a certain kind of, those guys are really good readers. For example, sometimes when I'm doing a record date, I don't even care if someone reads, as long as the feel is right.
Yeah.
But you can't approach film music that way, because you're all together. You have to be able to read the very specific things, like with all kinds of odd meter changes, and it's the kind of thing to. However, I have scored movies bringing players in to my studio that don't read, but that's a little different because I can work with them one-on-one.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. Sorry, I'm just writing down something.
That's okay. And I'm wondering, is this coming through for your viewers okay? Can they hear the audio?
Well, I think so because we have a bunch of comments like "awesome,"
Oh, good.
things like that.
Well, can you go to the website again? There's something else maybe I could share with you.
Yeah.
This is.
Would you say you do mostly this kind of work as opposed to oops, let me share the screen, as opposed to arranging for people?
Well, I now it's almost like it kind of goes in waves. Currently, at this very moment, I'm an employee of Disney, and they're so, they're very protective of their project. So, I signed what's called an NDA. It's a non-disclosure agreement.
Wow.
So I can't really talk about it, but that happens to be something that's not for film, but more live shows. So, I currently I think I'm doing both. I'm probably actually right now I'm probably doing more live stuff and records and stuff like that. But it changes, and I think that's kind of what makes it fun.
Yeah.
So scroll through. I'm looking for something called. It's a show called Eyes. It's called Nooner. Andrew, are you looking at this too?
Yep.
This is Eyes' main title.
Okay.
Eyes Nooner, right?
That's it. So play this. This features Jeff Richman and let's see, Scott Kinsey. It has kind of a cool jazzy type vibe. Check it out.
Cool. By the way, speaking of Scott Kinsey, my friend Dan Davila and I, who go out together a lot to hear music.
Yeah.
Last week we went to the we went to the Baked Potato and heard Scott Kinsey's group.
Oh man, they're incredible. I mean, Scott, not only is an incredible player, but an incredible writer. And I really love what he does and what he's doing and also who he is. He's really just a gentle soul.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Over half my life, Dave Weicker was my best friend. We build all over the world. Bridges, dams, skyscrapers, $1 billion business. Started out at 2 trailers in Bayonne. You want a model for the worst day of your life? Tell your best friend he's not the employee you hope for. He left the company a month ago, right after he stole $100 million. He wouldn't admit it, wouldn't deny it. I told him, I don't get that money back, there's gonna be nothing left of me but a wet pile of lawsuits and headlines. He just smiled. Trusting Dave the way I did, maybe I deserve to lose everything. But I've got 14,000 employees. They don't.
The police know about this?
No.
Well, you should definitely contact them if you never want to see your money again. If you do, Judd Risk Management will undertake 72 hours of surveillance free of charge. My guys will find out what he took and where he hid it. The trick is getting it back.
9:04 a.m. Subject, David Weicker in motion. Weicker checked into the Eden about 90 minutes ago.
Alone?
Stay on the line.
Sorry to disturb you, Miss Fresh Flowers. Sure. I'm totally keeping the shirt. I promise. I don't know. I don't know.
Come in, baby doll.
She was a working girl. And even though it's only 11:07, that was a nooner. Plus, I'm pretty sure I got... Yep. Looks like numbered accounts, overseas, possible Swiss chocolate.
Bring it home.
Wow, cool. Really cool.
Thank you for indulging me in playing these and listening to these.
No, thank you for sharing it with us. You know, so I'm curious. Is like if you go to a jazz club like the Baked Potato and you see Scott Kinsey, there's music, you know, to follow, but everybody's playing what they play, how they give who they are, and they create around it. So I noticed that there were points that were very very melodic, very kind of everybody was tied into the same melody. Then there were parts that seemed I wondered if like Scott had just like set something into motion as he's prone to do.
Yeah, you're a very astute listener, and I mean that. So in this case, I knew, and Scott was the perfect guy because Scott and I both idolize someone named Joe Zawinul, and you know that. Anyone that knows Scott knows his love for Joe Zawinul. So I had music, very specific music written, but then with like between bar 46 and bar 61, I knew I wanted Scott to noodle, kind of even with a certain sound that I know that he and I both love. And it happens to be one that Joe Zawinul used. And so I would, it's kind of like having a script, and then when you reach the diner, when you're ordering your coffee, you just improvise your conversation. And then from that conversation, you're going to walk out of the diner and you're going to go back into the script. And that's when you reach and get your gun, blah, blah. And so kind of back and forth between very specific instructions to, it's probably, you can liken it to a jazz piece when you play the head and then you play, you have a framework in which to solo over, and then you end with something written.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the beginning too. That was really kind of gave you like, you know, what's happening, what's going to happen.
Oh, good.
It drew you in instead of, you know,
yeah,
dictating how you should feel. It was kind of like, ooh.
Right. I tend to, I mean, film composers, usually we follow the emotion as opposed to, we certainly can't telegraph it. Meaning, if there's what's called a jump cut, you know, someone sees a body and it's like cuts to the dead corpse or whatever, I can't play some big hit prior to the look. So we are a fraction of a second behind the emotion. Because if we're starting to lead the emotion, it's like you say, it becomes, the scene can't be led by music, which, by the way, that's somewhat of a generalization. I suppose someone could say, well, here's an example. So there's always the exception, but you're right. And you want to bring people in. One time I saw John Williams rehearsing an orchestra. And he came in and this is very useful. Instead of starting from the top, he just went to a couple of what I would call difficult passages. And he said, okay, let's take it from there. And then, he would conduct and then cut people off. He put his baton under his arm, and then he talked about this quietly. He said, I'd like that to be staccato, bars 52. And people, you wouldn't have believed, the orchestra, they're like, whereas a lot of times when I'm on the podium, I say, okay, listen, those notes have to be short. I'm working way harder. What he taught me is, if you say less and if you say it quieter, it draws people in, as opposed to like, okay, guys, at bar 407, don't do that, because when I'm yelling, it kind of gives them those two permission to talk about their real estate deals. So that was kind of a good lesson. And to your point, to bring people in, you do something small, something alluring, and that kind of brings the listener in a little bit, or the viewer in this case.
Great. Sorry, I have a little chronic cough, so
That's a little something called COVID-19, or that was, no. I have COVID twice, so I have you beat by one. No, I should not joke about something so serious.
No. But when I go out in public, like to the market, I always have I always am coughing at some point. So I try and keep these really close so I can like sneak them under my mask, because otherwise people are like,
oh yeah, people freak out. Yeah.
Who is she? What is she doing?
Yeah.
I guess COVID really hasn't affected what you do.
Well, I've been doing a fair amount of recording sessions remotely.
Yeah.
And, as grateful as I am for that technology, I'm one of those people that believe that by being in the same room with someone, it really affects what they play. By being in this, and in fact, it's kind of popular now when, let's say, a guitar player says, hey, just send me the tracks and I'll lay a couple of solos down for you. And then I'll send you some solos back and you can pick and choose and make a comp between the 3 solos. Well, I don't prescribe to that, because I find that if I'm in the room with that soloist, and by the way, I don't mean to imply the solo is going to be better, but what I mean is the presence of someone else will make that soloist play a little differently. For example, have you ever been just playing in a club and somebody walks in that you really idolize? It has an effect on how you, Cathy Segal-Garcia, might sing. You might phrase ever so slightly differently, or I don't know if it's the same with singers, but I know as a bass player, I'd be playing and somebody would come in that I really respected, maybe a fellow bass player, and it would kind of affect how I played. And not necessarily, I'm not saying I would play louder. In fact, maybe the opposite. I'd say, man, I gotta think about that. I gotta be more of a team player. I gotta, really cut. And it would affect how I played. Well, that's how I feel recording sessions are, that you're affected by who's in the room. And some of, these are little producer secrets. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's not always great when the artist's girlfriend is there or the artist's boyfriend. Because producers, at least the way I produce, maybe I want someone to do something. Let's say it's a whole band. And I want them to do something that I know is not going to be that popular initially until I get them to try it. So there is a bit of manipulation that takes place. For example, if I want, let's say if I want a player, this is just a silly example, but I want them to play a B. I said, well, instead of me saying, hey, play a B there, I'll say, I don't know. I'm not really sure. It's something, I don't know, below a C and maybe above a B flat. I'm not really, for the musicians listening, that is only one note and that's a B. But the idea is I still want them to be thinking for themselves. I might kind of know where I want them to go, but instead of dictating, because I found that when I dictate to a player or whomever, even a band, it's fine, but they then are just waiting to be told what to do. And that's not why they're there. They're there because they were selected specifically because of their own contributions. So I'm careful when I'm producing. I don't just say, okay, no, play a B, now go to a D sharp and then an F sharp. You know, I would rather kind of have that in mind because I know that works, but then present it to them. And oftentimes they'll play something else that I like better. So that's even another reason why I don't dictate too specifically. But back to the boyfriend, girlfriend, if I want to get an artist to maybe try something, sometimes it goes to what I was talking about, how the people present affect what's being recorded. And let's say if a girlfriend comes in, which by the way, it's not that I'm opposed to those kind of visits, but maybe not at the beginning, because you just want to be able to work with the artist in a way that they're not showing off for their significant other, because that's showing off is a little bit different than what you want to do when you're recording. I mean, there might be a time when you're really, you know, pulling all the stops and playing flashy or singing flashy. And of course that's showing off, but sometimes if the significant other is there, they're showing off at times when it's like, you shouldn't be showing off there.
Yeah.
That's when you're the team player. What are you doing? You're playing too loud.
Yeah.
In studio, playing in a band, and by the way, I know you know this, and most of, you know, the other seasoned veterans that are listening know all this, but some of the aspiring session players might not know. It's not a matter of just, oh, if it's too loud, just turn down the fader. No. The loudness is, of course I can turn down the fader, but it's the tone. The tone is different when you're playing loud as opposed to playing soft. It's not just a matter of how much air is being pushed, it's the color. And so that's why really seasoned pros, when they play together, man, they're mixing themselves. They're balancing themselves. They know when it's like, oh man, I'm overplaying. I'm playing too loud. No, man, play the way you would in a club. You can't play that loud because you're going to be louder than the bass player. You're going to blow over the vocalist. You can't do that. So that's why it kind of all wraps around how it's important who's in the room. And that's why this COVID thing, I'm really grateful for the technology, but man, nothing beats being in the same room with somebody.
Yeah. Speaking of my band in Berkeley, Mike Hetfield joined, and he said he can't play in front of his mom still.
Interesting. That is really funny. And I'm wondering, is it because she's critical or what?
I don't know, but it's funny because I also thought, and maybe this is a female point of view or not, I don't know, but I also thought instead of showing off for your mate, it might be kind of controlled by your mate or concerned about your mate's opinion, you know. So
that's part of it too, Cathy. I'm serious. That is very much part of that. And I guess I want to be clear. It's not, and the way I produce is, man, they sure don't have to be my ideas.
Yeah.
I'm just the facilitator of ideas.
Yeah.
So sometimes a spouse might think of something like, God, that's a great idea. Or, the second engineer might have an idea.
Yeah.
I like to open it up. Look, I'm just the coach, and you guys are out there on the field playing. It's you that has to hit the ball or catch the ball or run or something. But I'm just here to organize our ideas and let's get it on tape. And I still, even though we record the hard drive, I still refer to it as tape.
That's okay. That's okay, Phil. You can do that. We have, a few more minutes. I mean, I just kind of generally shoot for 2 hours, but believe it or not, we've been talking for almost 2 hours.
Wow, that's a long time. I can't believe.
Yeah, it's been really fun to hear about all this stuff. I normally get into a little bit more history, life history.
Sure.
Did you have siblings? Where are you from? How But I just wanted to jump in because I was so curious about what you are doing and what you have been doing over these last bunch of years. Anything else that you would like to share that you think?
Well, maybe I should, because you're a vocalist, I should share. Let me ask Andrew if I have anything. Andrew, do I have anything like songs to picture?
Let me think, I'm looking. I believe.
Like Summersby or something like that?
Is this on your site as well?
Yes, I'll pick things that are specifically on my site.
Okay, cool.
The MP3 of the song it's not a picture though.
Okay. So here, I tell you what, let me do this. Let me share a gig that I did not get.
Okay.
But it's still on here, and it's What They Had. That's the name of the movie.
Is this under songs, albums?
No, you're in the right category.
Okay.
It's a video, so scroll, and Andrew, speak up when you see it. So this was something that, it's really important when you're on what's called the short list. You still want to give it everything you've got, because this is it right here. Okay. Although, is that the main title, Andrew, or is that?
That's the main title.
Okay, go to the next one. Yeah, this is what I want you to play. So this is a gig that I did not get, but I wrote something for it, and I thought, well, what the heck? I should share my failures too. So let me, this is some really good acting. And I like what I wrote, but I did not get this gig. And that's that. We'll leave it at that. So
okay, here we
go ahead.
My dad grew up on a farm in a small town called Amboy. He met Ruth O'Shea at an ice cream social and had a thing for her ever since, even though she wouldn't give him the time of day. After high school, he went off to Korea, and when he took leave and came home, his mom told him that poor Ruthie O'Shea had gotten polio and hadn't been out of bed for 6 months. So he marched over there and picked her up right out of bed and carried her in his arms to the movies.
To the movies.
Couldn't live without her. He never let her go.
This was the perfect time. You know, and later, I had forgotten her. And any earlier, I'd have missed him too much. Right now is perfect. I'll hardly ever know the difference. You hate the car.
That's harsh. I don't hate the car.
Oh, wow. That was, man, your song was totally beautiful.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you. It's perfect because it's a perfect time to end because it's exactly 2:00. So sorry to bum all your viewers out. That was kind of a
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. I cried watching.
no, but I love. I revere actors that they can just, you know, um, embody the character. It's like to the point they're not acting.
Yeah.
It's like they are that person. So
Was that a movie or a TV?
that was like a little indie movie.
A little what? Indie movie?
Indie movie.
Yeah. Wow, that was really, yeah. That was beautiful, but the music was really beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So even though you didn't get the
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's actually the actress Hilary Swank is a friend, and she likes my music. And the director, she said to the director, "I want you to check out this composer Phillip Giffin." Now, the director already was kind of like had her composer.
Right.
So that's always a tricky thing. But so the director called me, but I could tell, like she said, the director said, "Look, I'm already pretty far down the road with this other composer." So I definitely got the feeling the director was calling me to appease Hilary Swank.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I wasn't going to say, "Well, if you're already down the road with this other composer, just go for it." Yeah. No, I couldn't do that. So I gave it my best shot. But I don't think, I'm not even sure if that director heard what I wrote. In fact, I will say this at the risk of being disrespectful to that director, and this has never happened in my career. That director never even called me back. And I know what I wrote was at least worthy of, if it wasn't the director calling me back, someone from that production team should have said, "Thank you for that." They didn't have to compliment me. They could say, "That was a piece of crap you wrote. And so because of that crap, she's going to pick somebody else." It's pretty unusual. And the same with actors. If you go in to read for something, you'll get a call back. They'll call your agent and say, "Oh, sorry, not this time," or something. Yeah. But I never even heard back. So I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. Say, I still like what I wrote so much so that I'm going to put it on my website.
I have a friend who's a film composer, Catherine Bostick, and she wrote the music recently last year to the Toni Morrison film, and really beautiful job. But for that film, she said a very unusual thing happened. They said to her, "You write the whole music, go ahead." And they never came in and said, "No, we don't like that," or "No, fix that over here." She said, "Well, do you want to comment?" Because that's what usually happens. Yeah. Right? No, nothing. They just had her write it, and they took everything.
That's a composer's dream.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some directors that the first time they hear my music is on what's called the dub stage. That's when they're mixing the music, the dialogue, and the sound effects. And it's like, that's when it's too late to change anything. And I always love that because it's like, but good for her. That's a real sign of trust. And they loved every note she wrote. That's really incredible. Because composers, we're not that crazy about making changes, but I will say, a very large percentage of the time when a director wants something different and you make the change, it's better.
Yeah.
It's better. But, it's kind of like how players might feel when I ask them to do something different. It's kind of like, well, wait, I've already kind of got this part down. That's kind of how composers feel when someone asks you to change something. It's like, oh man, then I have to redo all that. It's a kind of a whiny thing. But inevitably, the director's right. I mean, there are a few instances where it's kind of like, you mess with that too much. It was better before you got in there. But that's like, 1% of the time.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much. I know your time is valuable and it's just been so much fun. It's very educational, inspirational. I'm sure a lot of people feel like that listening. And for me, it's just a joy to, sit and talk with you for 2 hours and actually find out, I always knew your perspective in life, but I didn't really know all this stuff. So it's been really fulfilling for me to have this talk with you.
Well, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you. And honestly, the honor and pleasure was mine to, be a guest on your very cool podcast. Is that what this is, a podcast, or what is this?
I don't know.
Video.
Yeah, I guess it could become a...
No, but is a podcast, is that audio only, or what is it when it's visual too?
I don't know, because my information has not expanded to that knowledge.
No, but please keep it up, because I know I have enjoyed watching you in your interviews.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been really fun. You are, guess what number you are? 85.
That is amazing. Gosh. Somehow you'll be able to monetize this eventually.
Yeah, something. I'm going to have to get a little bit creative here.
But I like how you're just following your muse. And I swear that's kind of what I've always done in my life, kind of follow what I love. And then the money was kind of a byproduct.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen to you regarding this specific thing.
Thank you.
Because it's really cool.
Thanks.
No, thank you. And may I bid you adieu?
Yes, you may.
God bless you.
Yes, thank you. You too. And stay safe. And I'm just going to tell, if you want to just hang out for a second, you can. Sure. But Thursday, I usually take Thursdays off. And Friday, I don't know if you know Michael Patterson. He used to live in LA, and he's an orchestrator and composer. He moved to New York a number of years ago. And then Saturday, I'm interviewing Catalina Popescu from Catalina's Jazz Club.
Wow, both of those sound fascinating.
Yeah, and Sunday, the guitarist Pat Kelly, who's a great player.
Oh, incredible. Please give him my best.
I will. And, just if anybody wants to know who's coming, just look on my website. I have everybody listed. And I also have archives, an archive link. So thanks, Phil. Have a really nice day out there.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you. God bless you.
I'm jealous because the air must be so nice in Pacific Palisades. It's just the ocean.
It's pretty nice. Is it kind of hot where you are?
No, actually today is not hot. It seems like slightly overcast, but it's nice over here, Granada Hills. But I live walking distance from Jeff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Namaste.
Love you.
Love you so much.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.